Welcome to the Arcfluence Podcast, where we talk about how design impacts the way we live, work, and invest. I'm Nick Kirkan, your host, and with me today, as usual, is my business partner and co-host, Paul Fatkins.
Good afternoon. So I am very, 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 very hopeful, but it's like one of those things where you don't want to like hope too much for Ferrari to do good at the next race.
Oh, I'm like, what are you hopeful for? Well, I was holding my breath for a second.
Well, we had the history that was made, first win for Lewis at the last one. So
I was crying.
Yeah,
I was crying.
We have plenty going on, but like, somewhere in the front-ish of my thoughts is, the next race here. So I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be great, but that's not what we're here to talk about today.
I was going to say, I'm excited to talk about specifications.
Yeah. It gets a bad rap, I think.
Listen, it's important. It's a very important. It's not the glamorous piece of architecture and design, right? It's a necessary component that really brings a ton of value, and I think it's undervalued and overlooked in some cases. Yeah, in many cases, and I think we need to kind of talk about it. We got some really good insight on this conversation.
Well, and it's like educational purposes for the client as well. Like again, I'm sure they're not thinking about everything that goes into writing this, because it's not just your drawings. Like if you're doing a properly executed project for a contractor to be able to take it, run with it, and have little issues, right? There should be some kind of specification that goes along with the drawings. And I think clients don't necessarily think about that holistically. So I kind of view it as like an opportunity for us to educate the clients as well today.
Yeah. So. And if that aspect is missing in a project or not complete, it is going to cause delays and costs or delays on the back end that are going to be very costly to the client. And we want to try to avoid that.
Yeah. Oh, of course. That's like always the number one goal.
So with us today is Dave Sutzman, President at Conspectus, and Steve Gantner, Executive Vice President, also at Conspectus. Let's get into it. Dave, Steve, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks very much, Nick. Great to be here.
Dave, it's good to see you again. We got to meet you out at the AIA conference and say hello at least.
We did. I'm so glad that you stopped by the booth. I mean, you were one of many. Gosh, I can't believe how much traffic we had by the booth. I love specs. I heart specs, actually. And I hate specs. It grabbed a lot of attention.
Well, because it really is a love-hate relationship, I think. But when it comes to like what you guys do, either people love it and they dive into it, or they just loathe it, absolutely loathe it.
I'm probably in the middle somewhere, but I took the love socks because I want to. I
took one of each. I took a pair of the love socks, but then I did the sick hat. So
yeah. Well, it could depend upon the day. Could depend upon the time of day. That love-hate relationship.
Well, and you're looking at the hate one a little differently too, because it is a vomit emoji, right? So maybe one day as a specifier, you're just vomiting out specs all day.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, you're that good at it. So,
well, I'm really excited for this talk. We're going to talk about all the things, why specifications are important, both from the client side, the architectural side, even just like when we get into construction and how that can save so many painful conversations if it's done right. So, but before we get into that, let's talk about Conspectus, your company, and then how'd you guys get onto this journey in this very specific niche of the industry? And tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Well, there's two different stories there. Dave came to specs in his own way. I came in my own way. I'll tell you a little bit about mine. When I graduated from architecture school, I was never really that good or that interested in design or, worrying about how the building looks. I was more interested in how the building goes together. So while I was studying for my exams, before I passed them, I was working for a couple different architecture firms, and I did a little stint with a contracting company too. Did some project management and saw the construction side of it. Let me go back a little bit further. My father was a bricklayer, so I grew up in the construction industry inadvertently. By chance, my father. Anyway, getting into the detailing of the buildings and finally doing some CA work with an architecture firm, I discovered the need and the value of specifications. And I was on a couple of job sites, and I found myself talking to the superintendent and not having a real good position to back myself up or back up the firm or to back up the owner. And so I came back and I looked at the specs a little bit more closely. I made a few tweaks and I went into my employer at the time. I said, I'd like to make these tweaks to the specs. Are you okay with that? And he said, oh yeah, that's fine. So that's how I got started in specs. Eventually spec writing became a full-time thing for me. I was doing CA on specs, which is very difficult to do.
Yeah, that happened relatively fast then for you.
It took eventually to get to full-time specs took about 10 years.
Okay.
But yeah, and then eventually I landed a job doing full-time spec work with no more job site visits, which is kind of disappointing because it's amazing how much you can learn on a job site from a knowledgeable tradesman.
Sure.
They're just a wealth of information. And if you're willing to listen, they're willing to tell you about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, I know when I was in Chicago initially, so out of school, I joined a firm there that was a couple hundred people. And we had a person that was dedicated. That's all they did was specs. And they sat in the back corner, and they would work. Because so much would get missed during the design phase. And they'd have to pick it all up later on and try to figure it out and straighten out the mess that was made early on.
So for the listeners who don't know what specifications are, can we just get a high overview of what they are and why they're important?
Sure. I've actually practiced this a lot because I'm teaching a class in colleges. When you try and introduce it, it's, let's just say you buy a board game from a store, Monopoly, right?
My favorite game.
You've got the board, you've got the pieces. What do you do with them? Well, somebody wrote the instructions. We're writing the instructions on how to build the building.
Dave,
I'll take a different tack.
I was going to say, Dave, why don't you give your perspective on it?
Okay. Hey, have you ever made Toll House cookies with your mother?
Of course.
I have not.
Of course you have.
I have not.
I think of the Friends episode with Phoebe, where she's like, "Oh, my grandmother who was French, she was Nestlé Toulouse." And Monica's like, "You mean Nestle Toll House?" Like, yes, I have that recipe. It's right here on the back of the package.
Exactly, and that's my point. You turn the package over. Right. And there's the recipe of how to make Toll House cookies. Gives you all the ingredients. There aren't many. And it gives you all the baking instructions, how you make the cookie. And that's what we're doing for the buildings.
Yeah.
We're giving you the recipe. It's all of the products that go into the building. And it's all the instructions of how to put them together.
And as a project gets, like for larger projects specifically, and how the complexities that go into it, how important is it to have this information in terms of the timeline, the communication with the contractor, and just the end product?
If you want to get the right results, it's extremely important. I mean, after all, architects by contract have what? 2 deliverables? Drawings and specifications. So the drawings tell you everything that you need to know about the layout, about the quantities, sizes, relationships between the different systems and materials, but the specifications tell you everything about the quality. What are those products that you're buying? What kinds of testing and confirmation do you need to have after you install? What kind of performance is the building supposed to produce?
Exactly.
So the two work together because you can't draw performance.
Yeah. I think we talked about it before as I think we called it like the design intent gap is how we labeled it when we were chatting like before we came on the podcast. But there's essentially a gap between, what's going on in the early on design stuff and then what the end product ends up being. And, how do you bridge that gap essentially? And specifications essentially help bridge the gap between the intent and the end product and what you're getting at the end of the day.
They do.
Yeah.
And thanks for bringing up design intent gap.
Back up just a minute, Dave. You got to tell them how you got into specs.
That's true. We're so excited about this topic.
Well,
let's
and then,
pick up
I guess,
intent.
and then jump back to the design.
That's my fault.
Part of your arc as well. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So mine is a lot different than Steve's. And I was in an architecture practice coming out of school. I left that shortly afterwards, maybe 3 or 4 years, and ended up working at Conrail. Conrail architectural group was pretty small, and we actually had to do all the design. The architectural design. We were doing structural design as architects, and we were writing our own specifications. Now, this was late 1970s, so writing specs at that time was because we had access to it, we were actually using a mainframe computer.
Wow.
And punch cards.
Wow.
To write specs. Yes. So, and the text editor was not fun because you had to do all of your own manual word wrapping to be able to get paragraphs to look right. But that being aside, I moved from that to a full-time specifier for an environmental engineer doing water, wastewater projects and Superfund site cleanups. And I really enjoyed it. I fell in love with it actually because of all the detail. So you think about, here's an architect now specifying filter presses for wastewater. It didn't really matter because it was still constructing a spec. It certainly wasn't an architectural element. But from there, I moved on to mostly heavy process related engineering work. So power generation, biotech, pharmaceutical, and writing specs for them. Until I got to the 90s, when the industry was looking pretty sad. And I and a couple of my friends got shipped off to a client's site. We were working on architectural programming for a new pharmaceutical campus, and we ended up looking at each other and saying, we may not have a job when we get back, if we're asked to come back. So we created the predecessor to Conspectus at that point, 1992, as a hedge on making certain that we still had employment. And, maybe the rest is history, but, 30 plus years later, here we are.
I love it.
It's an idea. It's a concept. And we actually there's a website out there available, designintentgap.com, and there's a manifesto to try to explain the position about what is happening with design intent. What I found over the years, and it seems to be getting worse, is that we end up with a lot of value engineering in projects. And it gets to a point where through value engineering, we're losing some of what the architect's vision was for the project, in a way of trying to save costs or to be able to cut scope, to be able to meet a budget.
It's budget driven for sure.
Yeah, it is budget driven. And much of it, I believe, comes from lack of collaboration during the design process. Because if the architects had better information, cost, schedule, market conditions, that they would be able to make informed decisions and be able to keep the design on track. And one of the ways to do that is actually document design intent, produce it as a deliverable so that you can measure decisions against it, and invite the entire team to participate. So it's not just the designers working alone. Bring the owners, bring the contractors, all the consultants. Let's get everybody involved. Yeah. And if there's no estimator, there should be. One of the things I keep advocating, estimators and specifiers should come as a matched set.
Yeah. Yeah, we feel with a lot of projects, clients, I don't know, they don't necessarily have that holistic approach or mindset. We try to push it as much as we can. We try to say, hey, if you have a contractor in mind, let's get them on the conversations early versus later down the road. We don't want to go into something where it's like you go step from step, and at each step along the way, you're then having to reinvent something because somebody has some idea about how they want to do it. And like you said, all of a sudden it's a cost thing. Oh, well, it's cheaper to do it this way. That's why we want to do it that way.
It's tough. It's a slippery slope. And we obviously part of our job is to educate our clients. So we have these conversations, and it's great if we can hey, let's do a quick introduction with our team, because sometimes the team on a large scale project can be a dozen people. But with that does come costs. So a good way to, we're still navigating that strategy on how to be transparent about this is what we should do. This is the expectation, but this is also the cost associated with it. But at the end of the day, like if you're limiting on what we're doing and trying to cut corners, you're still potentially paying for that in the field or later down the road or in the life cycle cost of the building if we're compromising certain things. So it's not necessarily bottom line is, you got to look at the whole picture, not just this moment. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And
exactly.
I think it's easy to get lost in that step by step or moment by moment mentality. So.
And I think that's what's important about documenting early, because you said it, it's going to cost a little bit more money, but if you spend the money ahead of time, it's a lot less than if you spend the money after the fact. And let's face it, architects have to do a lot to try and get the idea out of the owner's head, develop a design that fits their program, get all the materials just right. And, you're not going to get it right all the time, but that's where you have the help with you. You have the specifier who knows the products. You have the estimator who knows the costs. You have a contractor who knows the install process. So why not have them at the beginning of the project to say, hey, I like the product you picked. However, it costs 10 times as much and it won't show up on time. Here's an alternative solution. Will this work? Well, the specifier looks at it and says, yeah, that'll work just fine. And I'll add that to my list for future. Use it on this project. And you've just VE'd it without spending a nickel in construction or during the process.
Yeah. And let's not talk about that as a VE process. It's a decision process.
Well,
because, it's, we don't want to have the listeners thinking that this is about cost cutting, because if you have a proposed substitution, does it meet the design criteria? That should be the number one question. Go ahead, Steve.
I said that's why I think you call it value engineering, because this is when you are truly doing value engineering. You are looking at the value of something and you're engineering a different solution. As opposed to the back end, when you're in the job site, building the building, then you're just purely cutting cost because you don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have that misunderstanding of VE. They think of VE as purely cost. And I get kind of what Steve is saying, like, yeah, you still call it VE or, value engineering perhaps, but maybe again, you think about it just early on so that it's to Dave's point. It's related to the design intent, and does it still meet the design intent? And if it does, then great, let's move forward. And right, it's not a big to do. There's not a big change order, and you just keep plowing along, with the process.
Okay. Yeah. So early on too, we can do the estimating, because I say every sentence I write impacts the cost, and every line item in the estimate should inform what I'm writing. So if we have the estimator and specifier together and helping the design teams make those decisions early, record them, we can look at the balance of costs across the project. Early on, that's far more important than actual costs. The exterior wall is X, but it really should be Y for this kind of project. Okay, so does the owner really want to make that wall out of balance, which would from norm? The owner can make those decisions. And if we know that up front, then we can begin to balance the rest of the project to stay in budget, right?
Yeah.
Or the owner can change the criteria.
Yeah.
And that's fine too.
How early would you say, so we're talking about early on in the design process. You talking about like in design development, or you're talking about even earlier, like from day one, schematic design, hey, let's start thinking about this from day one.
Earlier.
Even earlier than day one?
Earlier than day one, no.
It's like the chicken and the egg, what comes first?
Yeah. No, I think as early as possible, and as much information as you can get to help the architect make those decisions that are in the best interest of the owner who is actually paying the bill.
Sure.
Yeah, because part of the design intent really is documenting owner project requirements, because design's trying to solve those problems, right? So it becomes part of design intent. Design intent is really a response to the owner project requirements. So day one, hey, where are we building? It's in Columbus. Okay, so we know what regulatory agencies are involved. Let's document. Who are we going to have to go talk to about zoning? Who do we have to talk to for planning board approval? What codes apply? And if the owner's trying to do something spectacular, are we just meeting bare minimum code? Probably not. So then we can start to have conversations about that as well.
And another one of my pet peeve, I don't know what you want to call it, but one person that's usually not involved, that should be involved from the very beginning on the owner's side, is the facility manager. Because they've got to operate the building when you're done, right? It's going to take you, I don't know, year to 10 years, maybe 20, depending on the size of the building, to build the building, design it, build it. But then they got to operate it for the next 50 years. What are you building into that building that is going to be a nightmare to maintain, or that they're going to hate so much they're just going to change it?
Yay, Benny.
Operating it. Yeah, go Benny.
Now you have to explain, Steve.
Yeah, I was going to say, is this an example of a something that happened in reality that basically it's something that you always think about now whenever you're approaching a project?
No, we started talking about this process a while ago, and a friend of ours, Charlie Dunn, challenged me to come up with a presentation to describe what we're doing. And so I using his lead, followed his lead. I used Legos. So Legos is play.
I love Legos.
And we do a presentation where you do, me too, I love them. I do the first part of the presentation is a traditional method of designing and building a building. And what that demonstrates really is the inefficiencies in the traditional process that we go through. Design, stop, evaluate. Design, stop, evaluate. SD, DD, CD, schematic design, design development, construction documents. And then we get to the project and then we go, oh, we got to change this because I don't like the way it looks. Well, our owner wasn't informed properly along the way. They see it in real life. They're like, no, that's not good. Or you get to the final end of it and the facilities people say, how come you didn't ask us? That's a nightmare to get to that filter. We got to change this equipment out. Otherwise, it's going to cost you 30 times as much to operate it.
Yeah.
So I did the second round, and one of the key people in it was, I had the owner and the architect team. I had the specifier estimator. I had the contractor, and I had the facility maintenance.
Oh, you have to give them the character names from the Lego movie.
From the Lego movie, Lord Business, Wildfire.
Yeah,
is the
Wild Style.
Wild Style. Sorry, Wild Style. Emmett is the contractor, and Benny's the facilities manager. So that's right, Team Benny.
Team Benny.
I want to see those facilities managers in those meetings. They have so much impact on the building, and the owners just, they know it. They just don't know that they know it. They need to bring them in.
So, and the reason it's top of mind for me, I just ran this simulation yesterday in Allentown, Pennsylvania for Let's Build Camp for girls. So high school age girls that are involved in this camp. So learning about construction trades, design, and hopefully enticing them to join the community in the construction world. So it was a great experience. 20 girls in a room trying to figure out how to build Lego and do it collaboratively the second time. It always works out much better.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, and I know. So Nick actually runs an investment meetup basically here in Columbus, and it's again like we talk to the investors that are there always about how it's critical to assemble a team, right? To have a team of experts that knows what's going on. So again, it's the same situation here when you get into all these nitty gritty details on what exactly is going on with the performance of whatever, or how something's drawn or shown, the intent of it, how then it's actually executed on site. Like everybody has to be aligned and collaborating from day one, essentially. So it's the same kind of story, right? You have to assemble a team. You have to have that expert knowledge coming together. Otherwise, you're just leaving a big question mark over the project until whatever day it comes up, and then all of a sudden it's a big issue, and you're getting that, the fire alarm email. Hey, I need this right now, and I need to have a question to it. Guys are coming out tomorrow to do whatever, and it's like if we're telling them to hold, and then we're burning time and money there because now all of a sudden the project is not moving along as it needs to. So Yeah, all of these things are just popping into my head as you guys are chatting.
Well, and as you're doing that too, if you think about it, as we're writing the specifications, if we know you want a product and it's already been vetted through the owner, the contractor, estimator, facilities, why not just put that one product in there, call it good, and then you can eliminate some submittals.
Yeah.
That will cost you time and money during the CA construction administration end of it, checking those submittals. Because if it's not, just send me the product, just send me a certificate saying you're going to use the product I have listed. And if you're not, I'm going to charge you for a substitution request.
Yeah. Where do you guys see the biggest breakdown happening? So do you think communication is like the number one thing? Like if that's breaking down, or do you see a breakdown occurring somewhere else in terms of like the process? Is it just not not assembling the team, not being collaborative from day one, or
is it the contractor doing whatever they feel like doing?
Yeah. Or is it just like you get the maverick out there, the contractor who's like, well, I'm going to do it my way because I've done it this way for 30 years, you know?
I was going to say a little bit of it's everything. It's a little bit everything. But the biggest thing I think is time, because everyone's pushing architects to do it faster. And if you slow down, take your time to document it properly at the beginning, how much faster could you go at the end if you didn't have to wait 2 hours, 2 days, a week, 2 weeks for information to come back for a question that was asked in the field that could have been answered
I just
in 2 hours before?
I want to clap.
Can you come to the next meeting that we have with any of our clients?
I was going to say, let me just tell you what some of the things we're going through today, right? And this is not unusual.
Yeah.
Going into that same point, I'm working on a project. I'm trying to write the final specifications, right? Cannot make up their mind about what they want for door hardware. Fine. It's a complicated subject. That's fine. The architects were actually setting the stage for construction, that the documents aren't done. They're admitting they're not done. They know that they have to write addenda now, which complicates life for everyone. Number one, the contractor has to renegotiate whatever deals he may have with his subs, because they've already bid on the first set of documents and now they're presented a second set. Or they may be in the middle of bidding and now they have to stop and regroup to try to figure out how to deal with this addenda. And to Steve's point, it's all about the time. So every time there's a disruption like this, it costs everybody time. And if we could, in this case, door hardware, I could have this done in a day. All I need are some decisions. Right? So get the owner on the phone. Let's make the decision. Let's spend the day to write the door hardware as final and issue the entire set once.
Yeah. Well, and it's like when it comes back later as well, right? It's not like you're dedicated. It's not like you can drop everything and just do that, right? It's not like, oh, I only have one thing to do, sort of mindset. So
wait a minute, Paul. So if I email you right now, you can't respond in 5 minutes?
No, I'm on a podcast. So yeah,
and he's got 15 other important emails before yours.
Yeah, well, it's so then it comes down to that, like you said, later down the line, you might have to wait a couple of days or a week to get the answer back, you know. And it's that thinking about it holistically, you know, like Nick said, like a lot of times we have to educate our clients. Well, okay, we can issue it right now, like Dave, you said, we can issue it, but this is outstanding, and it's just we're kicking it down the road. It's going to come back to bite us.
Dave, to your point, as the architects are managing this process, it is our responsibility to put our foot down sometimes respectfully and say, hey, look, this is where we're at. This is what makes the most sense. Yes, we could submit now and start that approval process, but we're going to pay for it on the back end during the CA work.
I mean, there may be extenuating circumstances. There could be market conditions that say, hey, we need to be on the street today because there's a mega project going on down the road. You know, that data center just outside of Columbus, you know?
Yeah, there's another one that they're proposing too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's sucking up all the trades, and we need to get this in line so we have construction staff to actually build it. So there are circumstances like that may influence the decision, and that's certainly understandable. But if there's time to be had, it's certainly better to plan this be able to get the documents put together, do it well. Right. And it's part of the early decision making, because some of this can be vetted much earlier than it is. Why are we deciding door hardware past the 11th hour?
Yeah. Well, I think part of the problem comes in is the non-documentation of the design intent. Like you were saying, Dave, if everyone's involved and you can actually at design development sign off on the set of plans and stop making significant changes and just document that design for construction only. You know, using your scenario with the door hardware, there's no reason then at the beginning of construction documents, the architecture team couldn't call a meeting with the owner and the users and the facilities guys. Don't forget them. And meet with them to talk about door hardware functions and maintenance of those operations.
They might give you that product for you, and they might have the answer, and we don't have to even say, hey, this is what we've done on a past project, copy paste. They might have a preference.
Or this is the system we use in all of our facilities.
Yeah.
You know, we stock one set of parts only for 15 buildings, and we're happy. And this is what we want for a door handle.
If we can get that team together early, I think many of these decisions can be hashed out early, and we don't need to be up against the wire at the end of the project.
Well, we'll be talking to you very soon. We have a big project that we've gotten started on. We're in the SD phase, and
we've already reached out, to members on your team to get that set up and going.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
Hey, we can use this as a case study. What do you think?
Sure. Yeah. We'll be happy to chat more about it in the future. Yeah, absolutely. Steve's dog barking. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, I was going to say, I came from a more traditional path. So, I've been exposed to many, many projects that have involved a lot of specification work, especially when I was in Chicago. And it's a lot of times it's like too little, too late. Like you said, past the 11th hour. You know, I can remember when it's like, oh, the project's due next week and we need to finish the specifications on it. And it's like, oh, has anyone really started it? It's like, oh, we've done a little bit here and there. Essentially, the answer was no. We haven't really done anything with it. It's like, I just throw it together from whatever we done in the last project, copy paste. You know, that's what I felt like would happen half of the time. And it's just like, oh my gosh, it created such a headache. You know, and like I said, we had a dedicated person that's all they did was the specification work. And when things would go down the line and circle back to him, his life was just like, I don't know. He must have had a bottle of something in his desk to like get through the days. So,
well, I think that's also why we need to protect our time and the estimated timelines of the SD and DD phase. A lot of times we want to push through that as fast as possible, or the client wants us to. Yeah. And I think that's a bad idea. We need to spend time thinking about this stuff.
Well, yeah, I think architects too have a misconception that it's just not a fun, exciting thing necessarily. Like, I don't know. What do you guys think? One of the biggest misconceptions that us as architects have, like in the world of specs.
Good question, Paul.
I'm trying to open a document so I can read a quote because it's so fitting.
Yeah,
and it's probably one of my favorite quotes that relate to specifications.
Well,
okay, so are you ready, Steve? You've heard this before. So this quote is from Goldwyn Goldsmith, FAIA. So he's writing a book called Architect Specifications, How to Write Them. Now, the book was written in the 1940s, way back in last century. But he's quoting from a presentation that was done in 1918. Okay, think about it, over 100 years ago. So let's see how much of this has changed, right? So here's the quote. The writing of architect specifications is a task approached by many with trepidation, by some with careless confidence of ignorance, and by a few with the studious determination to succeed. Let that one sink in.
Still valid.
Yeah.
Still valid. Absolutely.
Still very valid.
Like, and you mentioned copy paste, and there it is, the careless confidence of ignorance.
Yep.
Like I said,
it happened so much. I was just shocked. And, you know, as I was young out of school, and I'm just like,
And that was a big firm, Paul. How many architects?
Couple hundred just in the Chicago location. But I'm just like, oh, this is what we do, I guess. You know, what were you going to say, Steve?
You had asked about what the biggest misconception is. And I think the biggest misconception in the industry is that it's just the same as the last one you wrote. Just use that and modify it just a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's not.
I saw it happen fresh out of school. I was on the project and, you know, asking the questions, what do we have to do here for this? And that sometimes that's the answer. Oh, just, you know, copy paste. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Does anyone ever tell you guys it's just a building? It's got 4 walls and a roof. Just do it like the last one.
The struggle is the sciences has evolved the last couple decades. So we can build better buildings now. And we have better specifications too. The
systems and products that are out there have evolved. Like everything's evolved. You know,
the challenge for me and my limited scope of this is having a insightful conversation with the client, saying there is value in this, even though it costs more. There's value in this, and we need to get better. I guess we need to get better at selling this to the client, because it really does produce a better product. And again, I've been emphasizing on, you know, the health of the occupants of the building, the productivity of the occupants of the building, the value of the life cycle of the building. So I mean, we have to stress those topics more to our clients and make sure that we're not just pushing through that, glazing over it, and just saying yes to everything.
Yeah. Yeah, Steve, like a lot of clients, if they just want the same, you know, 4 walls and a roof, you know, enclose us, give us a space, you know, get us an approval. That's the other thing we hear a lot too. We just want to get an approval. So get us the permit approval and that's it. Like, we'll take care, you know, just say whatever for it's to be provided by owner or owner to be determined, right? Just leave it as a question mark or open, right? Don't spend the time doing that. We'll take care of it. And it's like, okay. So then it's like Nick and I sometimes will just kind of pray that things work out. If it's a situation like that where they're like, well, just get it out the door, you know, we'll manage that on the back end, you know.
But when certain elements of a project are compromised or changed, it can impact other things that, you know, the contractor or the owner, or even sometimes the designers aren't seeing. That's why, to your guys' point, having these conversations with everybody consistently through the design process, it's extremely important.
Yeah. So what you're describing, Paul, sounds like developer-driven projects, because I've been there, designing and drawing. You know, just get us enough so that we can go pull the permit, and we'll make the decisions later, right? And that, hey, it's their prerogative, it's their building as owner or developer. You know, their money, they can make that decision, right? I wanted to maybe add another quote as well from one of my favorite clients. And this fellow ran the construction administration department for a large firm. So much like Steve has been doing with the CA staff. So he's an architect by trade. And he took me aside when I was visiting their office, and he says, Dave, this is not a production firm. This is a design firm. He says, I don't care what's on the drawings. Give me a good spec and I will get what I want, because he can hold the spec over the contractor's head as a way to be able to enforce what he believes is right for the project, even if it's not shown on the drawings. So he took the specs to a different level, actually. They should be coordinated with the drawings for sure, and the drawings should show what the architect is really wanting. But in this case, he knows that his staff were not going to produce that level of drawing.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, I can remember one time, Dave, we had an owner actually ask, you know, because we showed them what a typical spec book would look like. And they asked the question, like, are the contractors really reading this? And, you know, it's like our reply was, well, they should be. So that's part of their job. Like, this is, like you said, it's the recipe at the beginning. Some of them,
I would say some of them absolutely do. And some of them don't.
Well, you can one up them on that too and tell them it's just not, they're not supposed to read it. They have to read it. It's the contract.
Yeah. It's required. They should be. They should be. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe most of them do. So I want to give the contractors the benefit of the doubt because they do take a lot of documentation and actually get things built. In some cases, I don't know how they get it done by the documents that they're handed.
Oh,
Agreed.
So-
100%. Yeah.
To be fair though, like it's broken down into multiple subs, right? So you're not reading this whole book. You're reading the section that's specific to your trade.
Yeah. But still,
Yeah,
there's a
so
lot
what-
of gaps that are out there,
Yeah.
right? And people have to kind of come up with how to get things done. Like you said, Dave, sometimes you see what they're given and then what the end result, and you're like, well, how did you get from A to B? And it's impressive what some contractors can do.
But that's why it's important for us to really have an understanding of this too, because there's some gray areas between trades where there's some overlap, and it's important. Like, well, who's doing what when there's like a 20% overlap here? You guys, we need to have a conversation. And if they're not talking, we need to have that conversation. We actually should be having that conversation.
Yeah.
And
Well,
what if we
minimum-
take a leap forward? What if we take that 500-page spec book and turn it into 50?
Tell me more.
So it's much easier to read by everybody and
Yeah.
still documents virtually the same thing.
I like that. So an easy to understand, less, not a contract that a lawyer's written, but something that we can truly embrace and follow and have a conversation about quickly. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you giving away is this something that you're working on, like in terms of, or is this just like it would be nice sort of thought thrown out there?
We've already done it.
Yeah.
So we took my last project where I did this, Cancer Infusion Center. It was an addition to an existing hospital, but it was a 2-story lobby space, so elevators, stairs, complete building enclosure, plus an interior fit out for this infusion center. Architectural and structural together is what I wrote. Total spec for that project, 25 pages.
I don't know.
Now,
That's great.
MEP decided to do all of theirs with notes on the drawings, and it's probably the same notes they used for the last 20 projects. There may or may not have been reviewed for this particular one, but the building was built, and I had 0 questions on the spec during construction, 0. So 25 pages.
All right. When I was doing construction management for a contractor, one of my tasks was to, look at the specifications, and the contractors we didn't read the entire spec book. Okay. Not just flat out honest, but we did read part 1 of each specification section, because that told us as contractors, as the general contractor, what we had to hold our subcontractors to, what meetings they had to go to, what submittals they owed us to give to the contractor and the architect, what requirements they had for other stuff, inspections and testing, who was paying for all that. So I had to dig into that to find out what that was part of our contract that we had to fulfill. But yes, generally the subcontractors get really into the weeds of the specifications, and they will call you and say, hey, ASTM such and such doesn't apply to this anymore. It got changed this time. And so you go look at that ASTM standard, you're like, yep, you're right. This is an RFI to the architect. And that's part of the process too, of the construction manager having to read the specification to vet RFIs before we send them to you. Because what's worse than you getting an RFI that hasn't been researched by the contractor, or worse yet nowadays, one generated by AI that knows nothing.
It's happening.
Yeah.
Now explain
waste your time.
RFI. Explain RFI, please. So everyone
Request for
knows.
information or
Yeah.
request for clarification information. RFI is information.
Yeah.
It's just when you come across something vague in anything, the drawings or the specs, you don't make any assumptions. Ask for clarification from the architect for their design intent. They will do their best to answer that question in a means that fulfills the design intent and doesn't cost the owner any extra money.
Yeah. And I'll chime in with the AI stuff. We're definitely supporters of using it to an extent, but it's like everything needs to be checked and verified. You just can't plug in whatever and have it spit out whatever, and then you just take and run with it. Because there's still things where it'll get some reference wrong. It might be the right reference, might just be old or outdated or whatever.
AI is like
it's not necessarily a hallucination.
AI is a fantastic young recent graduate out of university that is still learning some stuff. And you just need to make sure that you're, going over it all. I think it's going to get better every day. Like it is getting better every day.
Yeah, there's still a lot of blind spots.
You can't set it and forget it.
Yeah. So maybe it'll get there, but yeah, it's definitely if you just rely on it, it can be a very painful thing. So I would agree to that point, Steve, that it just takes whatever, and then it creates more of a headache right now a lot of times than a solution. It wants to be helpful. That's like what it's designed to do, but there's still a lot of misses out there that are happening.
Yeah. And what we're saying about the design intent too is not perfect. There's still going to be things that come up during the design process and the construction process that need to be worked out, late in the game or in the field. But if you follow that process, I think you're going to have much better documentation, and you're going to spend much less time on the back end during construction. Architects will save money during CA. Contractors will be able to do the job consistently and fast on the back end. And in the end, the owner will end up saving money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because you brought up RFI, Steve, I want to circle back to that because design intent, I think, helps. And I think you help prove that, right?
Oh, yes.
That through collaboration. But a study done 2013 by Navigant, and they looked at RFIs for projects around the world. So they studied, I think it was over 2,500 projects, all different scales, all different types of projects. And they came up with an average RFIs per project and RFIs per million in construction cost. So RFIs per project were approaching 800. 800. Did you get that number? RFIs per million construction dollars, 10 per million. Okay. So now if you just take a normal kind of a project that we're working on, maybe a 30 million project. So if it's RFIs per million, it's 300, not the 800 average. But do the math. If it's 800 average per project, the architects during the study reported, just the architects, 8 hours average per RFI to receive it, log it, review it, respond, log it back out, 8 hours. Take the billing rate by 8 hours, or take 8 hours by 800, 6,400 hours. 3 man years.
Yeah.
To answer RFIs.
Did you have that built into your proposal?
Probably not.
Nope.
Probably not. Yeah.
See?
Definitely using AI.
Yeah. Anecdotally, I'll say since 2013, my experience, the RFIs are getting worse.
They're getting worse.
There are more now than there have ever been.
Well, and I think that comes down to also a liability thing, right? So they want somebody to point the finger at, so they're going to ask the question to try to get the answer so that they don't have something come back on them at the end of the day.
And that's why we need, again, I'm going to go back to being good stewards and collaborators, because when I first got started, I used to learn so much in the field from the subcontractors and contractors. And it almost feels like the climate has changed. They don't want to offer any suggestions anymore because of liability purposes, and there's no collaboration there. So we need to really be good stewards and leaders to foster those conversations again.
Yeah.
That's where
collaboration,
you come back to
communication.
Yeah.
You started
and that's where you come back to having the conversations ahead of time with everybody. If you build a rapport with somebody during the concept and schematic design phase, it's a lot easier to talk to them in the field when something's going on.
Yeah.
When I was doing CA, I loved going out and talking to the superintendent, and I would develop a rapport with them so that we would get to the point where they would say, I've got a problem. Do you want me to write up an RFI? I was like, no, I'll be out there tomorrow. Let's walk through it and talk about it. So we'd walk to the site. He'd show me what was going on, and I'd look at the drawings. I'd look at the spec book, and then I'd say, okay, what were you thinking? And he would give me his opinion on how, as a field person building it, would do it. And I would take that back to the office and I'd talk to the designer and I'd say, this is what the superintendent's suggesting. I don't see any problems with it. It doesn't affect your design at all. It's not going to cost any money to make this change, or it's going to be so minor he's not going to bill it if we do it his way. If we do it a different way, it might cost money. And by having that back and forth, I spend a day on the job site, go back to the office and get them a decision. It's my regular day to go out and visit. No extra time spent. And you're actually listening to the knowledgeable person giving you advice, taking that back, maybe making the next project even better.
Yep.
So,
yeah,
that's a noble cause.
Yeah. Just talk to each other.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask so we're getting near the end of the episode here, but I wanted to ask, as far as what you guys would advise, what's one practical takeaway that you could say for architects, owners, as whoever's getting ready to start the next project, what's one thing that they should be keeping in mind, as a takeaway from this conversation for that next project that they start?
So besides start day one and communicate, make it hard for you.
Oh, Nick took away your answer now.
Yes. Document what you know when you know it. Record the decisions so that way you have something to judge future decisions. Are they meeting your intent?
Good.
Yeah.
Over to you, Steve.
I can't follow that.
Yes, you can.
Could be the answer for both of you guys. Yeah.
I think mine is, overall let's spend a little more time in the beginning of the project and save a little bit of time at the end of the project.
So as far as our listeners are concerned, where can they find you guys? If they're a fellow designer that's out there looking for information, is it as easy as just punching in your info online? We can put it in the show notes and all that as well. But do you want to give a little info on where you guys can be found? Do you have Instagram or anything like that, or aside from the website? You guys also do a podcast
Instagram
as well, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, all that information can be found on www. Do we have to say that anymore?
I don't think
just
so.
conspectusinc.com.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes though. Yeah.
I was going to say, if somebody really wants to reach out to us, we actually have a form on the website that you can use, or all of our contact information is on the team page on the website.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and
you could also, type in "I hate specs" or "I heart specs."
Yeah.
You guys should trademark it. So someone types it in, and then you guys will pop up, and they'll be like, "What's this?"
It does, actually.
There you go.
Oh, okay.
I hate specs.
I don't know. I guess you could get that one wrong, but
I'm going to try it once I jump off the podcast here. I was going to say, and you guys also have a podcast that you will be joining you at some point in the future as well, correct?
Yes.
You guys
post deliberate words.
Yeah, and you guys post bi-weekly on the podcast?
Monthly.
Okay.
Monthly for the main podcast, and we do a weekly short, brief, hot topic for the week.
Okay.
Well, it's called What a Week, because we do it on Friday, and man, sometimes we have had a week.
That's every week for us.
Yeah, lately.
Yeah.
Okay, it worked that time, Dave. I hate specs.
Dave, Steve, Paul and I are both looking forward to working with you for the first time on this project of ours. We're excited about that. We thank you for your time and chatting with us today. And with that, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
All right.
That's it.
Take care.
This has been the ArcFluence Podcast. As always, you can get more information and additional content on arcfluence.com. Please subscribe on the platform of your choice and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you.